and welcome back to The Living Jesus. My name is Tiffany, and this is my lovely co-host, Saiha. It's lovely to be here with you, Saiha.
As always, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for being here today, and thank you all for tuning in. Today, our topic of discussion is actually inspired from a video that Sadiq from His Peace released yesterday about the topic of reincarnation. This video was a very interesting video. It was a video that revealed that actually, as many people know, we believe in reincarnation. That's an aspect of our belief in the Ahmadi religion of peace and light. And this video, it went into revealing some of the incarnations of some of the world leaders, that are present in the world today. They're in very powerful positions. And they're actually the return of certain significant figures from the past. And also within this episode, there are past incarnations of historical figures like Adolf Hitler, for example, who he was in a past round. And this is a very interesting episode, and we sort of took it as inspiration for the topic that we'd like to talk about today, which is we'd like to ask the question, is reincarnation a biblical belief? Can we find evidence of reincarnation in the Bible?
Exactly. And, there are many Christians who also believe in the return of the righteous and the prophets and messengers, right? It is in the book of Revelation. Any Christian who believes in the book of Revelation, they know that 144,000 of the righteous ones will come on earth and reign with Christ,
Jesus,
right?
Yes, exactly.
So, but the thing is that this is also a twist to that, right? Because it's saying that who are they battling, against? They're battling against Satan, but also all of his minions, right?
Yes.
So Sadiq from His Peace, he's revealed that the best of the best are coming back, the 144,000, but also the worst of the worst are coming back, and they have come back. And this is this is
the ultimate showdown, basically.
Exactly. It is the battle. It is the battle between good and evil. It is the battle of Armageddon. It's the final battle, right?
Yeah.
And it's the apocalypse, which is the revelation of truth and the huge battle that's happening between the worst of the worst and the best of the best, right? Throughout history.
Yes, of course. So this is like Satan's final plea, it's his final attempt, at maintaining his power. And of course, this is the round that the prophets and the messengers wanted to be present for. Now, what a lot of people believe is that, it's not a controversial thing to believe that the best will come back, right? Because as you said, it's mentioned that 144,000 will be standing on Mount Zion, and it's a biblical belief. But many people believe this will be sort of like a zombie apocalypse, that people's bodies will rise from the ground and reassemble, something that will defy, science, all that we know about the laws of nature. And what we're saying is that the best of the best, they do come back, but they come back not with the same physical body, but their soul comes back and reincarnates in a different body. And so we wanted to take a look at some verses and see if this belief in reincarnation can be found in the scripture, because as we know, Christianity, Judaism, and Islam, the established religions, they sort of reject this idea of reincarnation of the soul. They teach the idea that you only live once, and then you die, and then you are judged.
Yeah, but I think there's evidence. The verses that we're going to go over, there's evidence that actually the rejection of reincarnation is actually a new concept in Christianity and Judaism, right? Because as we're going to see in the Bible verses and in these narrations of the events, it's actually something that was well known and like believed by the majority, and then now all of a sudden it's been taken out.
Right. Yeah.
Of the beliefs.
I mean, it's worth mentioning that not all sects or denominations of these faiths reject it completely. We have Kabbalah, for example, which is like Jewish mysticism, and they believe in the concept of reincarnation. And we have other branches of Judaism, Christianity, and Islam that do believe in reincarnation. But it is something that the large institutions have been teaching, that it is not a reality. But as you said, we can find a lot of evidence of it when we go back and we look at the Bible.
Exactly. And we're just right now we're just addressing like kind of the mainstream majority of the Christians. Of course, there are sects and certain denominations that believe in a lot of things, even especially with the New Age, Christianity, that they do believe in Jesus Christ, but they also believe in reincarnation, past lives, stuff like that. So there are certain ones, but we're just speaking about the mainstream church-going Christians, right?
Yes, exactly.
So the first one that we're going to pull up is in the book of Job. So now we're going to go over the evidence that reincarnation is present or is implied in certain verses in the Bible, and there are several of them. So this is one of them, Job chapter 1 verse 21, where Job is speaking to God or to his companions, and he's saying, naked I came from my mother's womb, and naked shall I return there.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, this verse is very clear. I think that, we don't really need to say too much. I think that Job sort of said it all there. He's speaking about returning to his mother's womb. I mean, as we know, that's a physical impossibility for an adult person to return to their mother's womb. So I think that he's clearly indicating that he will, reincarnate and he will return to a mother's womb. The first group of verses that we're going to go through are from the Old Testament, so the Hebrew Bible or the Tanakh. And the next one is from the book of Daniel, chapter 12, verse 13. But as for you, go your way till the end. You will rest, and then at the end of days, you will rise to receive your allotted inheritance. Yeah, so he's talking about rising in the end of days, a return to life.
Exactly. And does that mean that he's going to wake up from the earth as a zombie and then live, or is it speaking about reincarnation? And we can keep digging to see, right? Yes. So let's say maybe there's a doubt and maybe he will rise as a zombie. We don't really know, but what we believe is it is talking about reincarnation. So then the next one is in Psalms. Okay, so now we have Job believing in incarnation, Daniel believing in incarnation. Now we have David, right, in the Psalm 71:20. It says, though you have made me see troubles, many and bitter, you will restore my life again. From the depths of the earth, you will again bring me up.
Yeah.
So that's obviously talking about he dies, right? And how can you be in the depths of the earth unless you are dead, right? And then to rise from the dead. So he's talking about resurrection.
Yes.
But is it talking about zombie apocalypse kind of resurrection, or is it talking about reincarnation? Like I said, so what we believe is that it is reincarnation.
Yes, we do. And I mean, as we said, it sort of defies science, right? Because once bodies are buried and they're long gone, they no longer exist. They're just, a collection of particles. You say, that you return to dust, you return to the earth. So it sort of seems illogical from a scientific perspective to imagine that all of the particles that used to make up a human being would then reassemble,
I mean, it's not impossible for sure. There are verses about the dry bones of Jeremiah, right? That he told was it Jeremiah that he was told by God to go and see the bones reassemble, and they became human beings again. Of course, it's not impossible, but what we're saying is that it's probably not what they're talking about because of the other clues. So we have to keep digging. We have to keep investigating, right? Yeah.
Okay. So in Isaiah 26:19, we have, your dead shall live, their bodies shall rise. You who dwell in the dust, awake and sing for joy.
Yeah. Okay. And there's another thing that I wanted to mention is that I feel like for people who don't believe in the concept of reincarnation and believe that the only way to resurrect or come back from the dead is actually by raising literally from the dead with the same body being rebuilt, because I feel like those people, they don't believe in the concept of the soul. So they believe that you can only be resurrected bodily, right? So you can only do it so you can only be resurrected bodily because there's no soul to come back. But if you have a soul, then you can have as many bodies as you want, right? You can just leave this body and go to another one, right? The concept of transmigration, right? So that's also a really important point to point out as we're looking at these. This is what I thought.
Yeah, it's a good point. Then we have the first chapter of Ecclesiastes, so verses 9 to 11. What has been done is what will be, and what has been done is what will be done, and there is nothing new under the sun. Is there a thing of which it is said, see, this is new? It has been already in the ages before us. There is no remembrance of former things, nor will there be any remembrance of latter things yet to be among those who come after.
Oh, yeah, and the concept of reincarnation is that you lose your memories, right? So whenever you get reincarnated, you're a baby and you don't remember anything. Yes. Some people, they do remember certain things, but then they forget, right? There are stories.
There are many stories.
Yeah,
I mean, there's a lot of anecdotal evidence of reincarnation, but I guess that's like a side topic. But like for sure, there are people who, for example, as children, they remember that they used to be named something, and they remember where they used to live and what they used to do. And there are actually cases where people have done a lot of research into this, and they've confirmed that these memories that children have are actually true. So you would have a child, for example, saying, I used to live at such and such address, and then it's confirmed that actually was a person. There was a person by that name who used to live at that address. It's very interesting. And there is also sort of biological evidence in the form of birthmarks. Sometimes somebody will have a birthmark, and then they have memories corresponding to the life of somebody, and it turns out that birthmark corresponds to an injury or where they were killed. Things like that do exist, and of course that's a side topic, but it's something worth mentioning.
No, but I mean it is important to know that there are many Christians who believe that blind faith is the way to go, right? The Bible, you just have to believe it, even if it doesn't make any sense scientifically, right? Even if there's no other evidence around the world about it. But the thing is that there is there are mountains of evidence that reincarnation is actually true, right? And those scientific facts that you have said, that there are people who actually remember a past life, and they have certain physical signs, right, of past lives, that is evidence. So the thing is that we should rejoice at the fact that our Bible has scientific facts inside and believe in them. We shouldn't just dismiss it just because our certain denomination or pastor doesn't agree that it's talking about reincarnation.
I mean, I think that's why it's also important to go back and to read the verses and to contemplate over them. And this verse from Solomon is clearly saying that there's nothing new under the sun, right? Everything repeats. So it certainly stands to reason that the soul would repeat, for rounds and rounds in order to be tested, in order to, make it through different sort of circumstances in life. But this is all coming from the Old Testament, and I think that it's time for us to dive into a more specific example to see if we find that the Bible is actually confirming something tangible, a case of reincarnation. Exactly. And if we look into it, we actually do find that there is a confirmed case of reincarnation that spans across the Old Testament and the New Testament.
Exactly.
Because we find a prophecy in the book of Malachi that is then fulfilled in the New Testament. And this is quite an amazing and interesting prophecy.
Exactly, it is. So it's in Malachi chapter 4, verse 5. So God, he says, behold, I will send you Elijah, the prophet, before the coming of the great and dreadful day of the Lord. And the people know that to be the incarnation of Jesus Christ, the coming of Jesus, right? This is what the Christians believe. So now
it's a messianic prophecy. So it's actually believed in Judaism that before the Messiah comes, Elijah is going to come, and Elijah is going to be the one who points out who the Messiah is.
And also they celebrate this in the Passover, in the dinner of the Passover, right? They do this ritual of the Passover, right? Where they actually they save a seat
for Elijah,
because they say Elijah has to come first, and then Jesus would come back.
So there's an interesting thing about Elijah, right? Because Elijah, according to the scriptures, he was lifted in his body. He didn't die a physical death, but he was lifted in his body. So of course, some people argue that we're talking about not reincarnation, but we're talking about a return of his physical body. But when we get into the New Testament, we don't find that that's what's being described at all. Actually, in the Gospel of Luke, we find a prophecy that Elijah is going to be born. It says, and he will go on before the Lord in the spirit and power of Elijah to turn the hearts of the parents to their children and to the disobedient to the wisdom of the righteous, to make ready a people prepared for the Lord. And then we find that actually, before moving on, I just wanted to point out that the word spirit is actually a word in Greek that can mean soul. It's sort of a significant thing in the original language. Exactly. And then we find in Matthew chapter 11, 13 through 14, Jesus is saying, for all the prophets and the law prophesied until John, and if you are willing to accept it, he is Elijah who is to come.
Exactly.
And then, there's even more, actually. If you want to read the next passage, there's more from Jesus on that matter.
Yeah, exactly. So in Matthew chapter 17, 1 through 13, it's kind of a long passage. It says, the disciples asked him, why then do the teachers of the law say that Elijah must come first? Jesus replied, to be sure, Elijah comes and will restore all things. But I tell you, Elijah has already come, and they did not recognize him, but have done to him everything they wished. In the same way, the Son of Man is going to suffer at their hands. Then the disciples understood that he was talking to them about John the Baptist.
Yeah.
And John the Baptist, as we know from the scriptures, it's very obvious that John the Baptist was born.
Yes.
He was
a relative of Jesus.
They were raised together. He was 6 months older than Jesus. So we know that he didn't come out of thin air or from the sky or out of the ground like a zombie. He was born.
Yes, exactly. He was born. I think that it's really, really important, to really break that down. So Jesus, he's saying that actually he is the Messiah, and the important prophecy about what happens before the Messiah, it was fulfilled. But the people failed to recognize it. So I think that that's actually an important point to consider, because the people can't see the soul. They can only see the physical body. So John the Baptist, he was the one who pointed out Jesus, right? We know that he was actually the one who baptized Jesus. He was the one who pointed the way towards the Messiah. But the people couldn't see the soul. They failed to recognize that this was Elijah. And I think that that's actually an important lesson for all people in this day and age, because people, they're waiting for figures to come back. They're waiting for Jesus to come back. But in this case, it was Jesus who actually had to point out that Elijah was John the Baptist, that the soul of Elijah was inside of John the Baptist. The events didn't quite happen the way people were expecting it. It was not a body of Elijah coming down the way that it had ascended. The chariot of fire did not bring him down in a physical body. Rather, he reincarnated, and he was the relative of Jesus. And the people failed to recognize him, and of course they imprisoned him, and then he was beheaded. So this was the fate that he suffered.
And it's so interesting about this certain passage, because if we look at the context that he's saying, he said the same way the Son of Man will suffer at their hands. So he's saying that Jesus will also come back, and they will not recognize him, and they will also do whatever they want to him.
That's very interesting. Yeah, I mean,
it's
the
right
verse
there.
certainly could be read
just like the sign of Jonah,
Yeah, that's a very, very interesting reading of that verse. I mean, I think that we can see clearly, if Jesus were to come back through reincarnation rather than, descending from the heavens, the way that the Christians imagine that he will come, this will be quite a test on the people, just like how Elijah coming in the form of John the Baptist was a big test on the people, and they actually failed that test.
And he came from the heavens, even though he was born. And Jesus, he even said that the people would make fun of him. Why? Because they knew him since he was a child in their hometown. And he said, what is he talking about? He comes from the heavens. So Jesus, he did come from the heavens, but he was still born.
Spiritually from the heavens, but physically born.
Exactly. It's because you have to make the distinction between the soul and the body. The body is the vessel, right? And the vessel has to be born on the earth, but the spirit does whatever it wants. It comes, it goes, it transfers whatever it wants, right? The soul and the spirit. Right? So the vessel is not the actual person of Jesus. And that in the same way, it wasn't the actual person of Elijah, because Elijah, even though John the Baptist, the vessel, It was born, it grew up, and then the spirit of Elijah, the soul of Elijah entered into him and then fulfilled what it needed to do and then left.
Yeah, so I think that that's a very cool and very specific example that we have from Old Testament to New Testament, from the Jewish scriptures to the Christian scriptures. And I think that it's interesting that even though Jesus, he clearly said that John the Baptist was Elijah, people don't really understand it to mean that, but I don't think he could be more clear. He said that he was the Elijah to come. And if John the Baptist wasn't Elijah, then it sort of calls into question Jesus's claim, right? Because that's an important precursor to the Messiah. Elijah is meant to come and prepare the way for the Messiah. So if he did? Yes, exactly. So if John the Baptist were not Elijah, then many things sort of fall away. But as we know, he did, and he came through reincarnation.
Exactly, and the prophecy was fulfilled, and who else is going to fulfill that prophecy except for John the Baptist, unless Jesus wasn't actually the Messiah, which I know that's not true.
Yes.
Because everybody knows that he was. Yes. And the Christians believe that. So they have to believe in the prophecies of Malachi, and they have to believe in the words of Jesus himself, right? So they have to. They have no choice but to believe in reincarnation just from that instance alone.
Yeah.
But for the sake of evidence and proof, we'll keep going.
Yeah, I think that we should keep going. Because the evidence keeps going. So exactly. I think that we have to. Now, we spoke about the idea that there is this idea, not just that Elijah would return, but also in the Jewish faith, there's an idea that there will be this return of righteous souls alongside Elijah, other prophets and messengers. Many people believe that is something that will happen. So I think that that's an interesting point, because we have in Judaism, Christianity, and Islam this idea of the return of the righteous souls. And we have a verse in Matthew chapter 5 that sort of indicates that in Christianity. Jesus, he said, "Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth."
Exactly. It fits in with the Jewish traditions. It fits in with the Book of Revelation. It fits in with reincarnation, because and it fits in with our religion, because our religion is none other but the religion of God, the same God that revealed these three religions, right? So the thing is that he wasn't talking. What about the meek of his time? Are they now going, because they didn't inherit the earth?
Right.
They were actually killed, and Jesus promised them that they're going to be punished and killed.
This has to be a future promise.
Exactly.
A future fulfillment.
So how come only the meek in the future get to inherit this, but not the meek of the earth who believed in Jesus at that time?
Right.
And so it only makes sense that they would come back, just like Daniel was promised by the angel that he will also come back at the end of time. And then the Book of Revelation is also talking about how the 144,000 will return.
Yes, alongside Jesus in that time, in the end times. So yeah, I think that it's really a cool thread that links all of the Abrahamic faiths. And yeah, it actually just keeps going. And the next point that I want to talk about is the concept of transmigration. Because there's the commonly held belief about reincarnation that it has to happen at birth, right? That people are born with a soul, and that they have the soul with them throughout their entire lifetime, and then they die, and then they're born again with that same soul. It is this connection between the body and the soul, that they are tethered together. But we actually don't believe that to be the case. We believe that a soul can come later on in life, and actually Jesus and the disciples in that time spoke about this exact same concept, and that concept is the transmigration of the soul. The soul leaving or entering a body later in life. Exactly. And there's one passage that is so interesting, and I think that it's often overlooked because people focus on what happens after that, right? So we're talking about the passage in Matthew 16. We've talked about Matthew 16, the later verses in this passage many times, where Jesus appoints Simon Peter as his successor. And that's usually the focal point of this passage. But what they say leading up to that is actually very interesting. And they're talking about something very specific. Now it says, "Now when Jesus came into the district of Caesarea Philippi, he asked his disciples, 'Who do people say that the Son of Man is?' And they said, 'Some say John the Baptist, others say Elijah, and others Jeremiah or one of the prophets.'"
Wow, so now now all of these concepts that Abu Sadiq has preached are in this passage. So now if anybody denies that it's possible, then they are denying Jesus, because he's saying that the disciples, the closest disciples, the ones that were given all of the secrets and the mysteries of the kingdom of heaven, they are like obviously believing in the transmigration of the soul and reincarnation. Mm-hmm. They believe in all of those things. So now,
obviously. So let's unpack it a little bit. So the first one is John the Baptist. Now this is the strangest one out of the whole group. And you know why? Because Jesus and John the Baptist have been seen together, right? Mm-hmm. John the Baptist actually baptized Jesus. So how could Jesus be John the Baptist if we're not talking about a soul, transmigration situation happening? If it was not the soul of John the Baptist, then entering into the body of Jesus, because we know physically, as bodies, these were both people that the people knew and they saw together, and they were actually relatives of one another. So this passage absolutely does not make sense without the belief, commonly held belief in transmigration being a possibility.
Exactly. And then obviously the reincarnation concept would also come in this, in the in the fact that he said that others say Elijah, and others say Jeremiah or one of the prophets who already were passed. Exactly. So they were saying that one of the prophets was going to rise from the dead, to rise and to reincarnate. So they took those two as one. Mm-hmm. So they didn't even say, oh, maybe he came out of the ground and now he's now walking Jeremiah. He was born, like everybody else, right? And so now they're saying, maybe some people are saying that you are Elijah, and others are saying you're one of the prophets. So it is a widely common belief,
right? And this is just a casual conversation.
Exactly.
So it's not like they're having some deep conversation. This is just a sort of a glimpse into what they believed to be possible when we're talking about matters of the soul.
Exactly.
I think that we have a call, so we're just going to take that quickly. Hello.
How are you?
How are you both?
We're
I'm good. How are you guys doing? Good. My question is for both of you guys, if you have time.
Sure.
But since like the beginning of joining the Ahmadi religion of peace and light, and like up until now, have you ever had any doubt like of your faith?
No.
Okay, that's it.
Thank you very much. God bless you.
You too.
Thanks for your call. Yeah. So anyway, so now we have established that not even the disciples knew this knowledge. Actually, other people also believed that he could potentially come back as one of the prophets. Yeah. So one of the prophets could potentially reincarnate. So they're saying others say that. Some say this, some... He said, because in the passage, if you keep reading, it says, who do people say the Son of Man is? And then he asks, who do you say I am? So it's the people who believe this, right? So obviously this is a new development, that reincarnation is not real, because back then, 2,000 years ago, to them it was a casual conversation.
So people were sort of guessing who Jesus could possibly be, and these were the most common guesses. So yes, you're right. They were just repeating what people were saying.
Exactly.
And then he asked, who do you say I am? Exactly. Yeah, so this is a very, very interesting and a very telling conversation.
Yeah. So let's keep going. Okay. Let's go to Mark 8, verse 36. What good is it for someone to gain the whole world yet forfeit their soul?
Yeah, so this is an interesting one, right? Because I think that many Christians, they believe that their soul is tethered to their body, right? Even if they only believe in one incarnation, they don't believe that it's possible for their soul to leave them. But this is talking about how somebody could possibly, make an exchange, that they get something in exchange. They gain the whole world, but they lose their soul. And this illustrates the concept, which we know to be true, that there are pure souls, right? There are pure souls that they cannot stand being in a vessel that is not cooperating, right? So pure souls, they sometimes they leave a body. So this is talking about the body and the soul not being tethered, and I think that it's an important verse for Christians to consider, because they would have to look at this verse and they would have to think, okay, according to my belief system, what is this talking talking about, because how could I lose my soul?
Exactly. And if you look at the concept that Abu Sadiq, from him peace, has presented, that the worst of the worst will come back, and they are the rich, the powerful, they are the billionaires of the world, they are the rulers of the whole world, just like Iblis, just like Satan, when he was trying to tempt Jesus, he promised them, you can have the whole world if you want it, right?
Yeah.
So it's because the evildoers are actually Satan's minions, and they did gain the whole world. So how do you gain the entire world unless you have incarnated multiple times? I mean, for me, this is like goes hand in hand, because based on what Abu Sadiq has revealed, in each time, it seems that the evil souls have gained more and more power.
Yes.
Because right now, look at for example, the United States of America. Now they are like controlling all of the world.
Yeah.
They have
and as we know from the episode, many of these world leaders, they actually are in that category of the souls who have reached the peak of disbelief, right? So
Exactly.
the ones who reincarnate in this time, which is the time of the showdown between Satan and the Qa'im, between good and evil. The ones who reincarnate are those who have reached the peak of faith, and those who have reached the peak of disbelief. So many of the world leaders and the people in these positions of power, they're actually the people who have reached the peak of disbelief, and we know that they have reincarnated many times in the past, and we see them in similar positions. Like, for example, the President of the United States, we see that he has past incarnations where he was, doing similar things.
Exactly.
And this is just one example. There are many examples in the episode if you would like to check it out. So yeah, I think that it's telling, and it sort of illustrates like the concept that you're talking about. I mean, we see the temptation of Christ scene, right? The temptation of Christ scene, Jesus is offered the power in the world if he just bows down and he worships Satan. So obviously other people were offered the same deal and they took it. People, they were offered power in order, they were offered power in exchange for, being allied with Satan and the dark forces, and they took that offer. Exactly. And that's where we find them today.
Yeah. So now let's go to another big one. Okay. For this one, it's subtle. Okay. You have to actually contemplate. For most of these, you have to contemplate. You can't just read it and then move on. Right. So John 9 verses 1-2. It says, as he went along, he saw a man blind from birth. His disciples asked him, Rabbi, who sinned, this man or his parents, that he was born blind? So how could a baby sin, right, and then be born blind? Was he did this man sin in the womb?
This is one of those that you would have missed if you didn't read it and actually think about what it is that you're reading. And again, it's one of those casual conversations that we have from the disciples. They weren't discussing things deeply. They were just saying, they were speaking according to what they believed to be true when it came to matters of the soul. So how would it be possible that this boy would have been born blind at birth, and he would have been responsible for it by sinning? If the sin wasn't in a previous life, if he wasn't paying off a karmic debt.
Exactly. So our religion and many of the religions who do accept reincarnation and they teach it, right? Like Buddhism and Hinduism, they actually they believe in this concept, and they teach that it's your next life, your hereafter, is based on your deeds in the previous life, and that is the concept of karma, and that is the concept of reincarnation. That's why you're supposed to do good deeds. As you sow, you will reap.
Exactly.
So that's also an indication that even if you did bad deeds in this life, maybe in the next life you will incarnate as somebody like a person who is disabled, or maybe if you were stingy, you will be poor, right? If you did a great sin, maybe you will be born blind.
Right. Yeah, so Jesus, when he was asked, we've mentioned this before, but it's worth repeating. When he was asked, what are the most important of the commandments? I mean, he said that you should treat others as you want to be treated, right? And this is a great wisdom when it comes to karma, because as you said, as you sow, that is what you will reap. So, I mean, as you said, your actions will sort of come back to you. And karma is this great system of justice in the universe, and it is God's system of justice. And it's actually so obvious that even atheists believe in this concept. They believe in karma. And this is just one example of the disciples making it clear that the people in the time of Jesus, the Jewish people, they believed in karma as well. They believed that what you do will come back to you, and if you sin, then it has like the possibility and probability of manifesting in your next life, as they were questioning whether this individual, whether that was the case for this individual.
Exactly.
It's an interesting conversation.
So let's go to the next one. We'll keep going. Okay, Matthew 26:52.
Yeah, this one is also interesting, right? So Jesus, he said, put your sword back in its place, for all who draw the sword will die by the sword. So this is just another illustration of that sort of karmic principle, right? That how you live is how you will, what you do unto others is what will be done unto you. So basically, if you draw your sword, if you kill somebody with your sword, then you're going to be killed by your sword. Yeah,
but we also know, right, from many cases, that there were people who were murderers and killers who died a natural death, that they didn't get killed by the sword, so they didn't get murdered.
They didn't get it in that life. Exactly, but it doesn't go away.
Exactly.
And it will come back to you.
So we can't say that Jesus was lying, right? Because haram, forbidden to say that Jesus is lying, right? He's the Son of God, he's the Spirit of God, right? So it says, put your sword back in its place, for all who draw the sword will die by the sword. So obviously he's telling the truth. So now we see multiple cases in the world every day that people get away with murder and they die happily. And then what happens did Jesus lie?
Yeah.
Of course he didn't lie. So obviously it's talking about another life that he will be killed by a murder.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. It's a very, I think that all of these examples, when you put them all together, it becomes so clear. It becomes so clear. And I mean, we didn't even mention the verses. We didn't think that it was necessary to get into the verses about the return of the pure souls. But we all know that that's an aspect of belief in Christianity. But what people don't think about is like how that's going to happen, and how that's going to be possible. And I think that it's sort of, it's an aspect of the Christian belief that's sort of put on the back burner. People don't really think about it a lot, what's going to happen in the end times regarding the return of the righteous souls. But it makes a lot of sense if we're talking about reincarnation, right? It makes a lot more sense than the concept of this mass zombie apocalypse. I mean, it just makes a lot more sense if we're talking about what has happened and what we can prove has happened biblically.
Exactly. And let's do a really big one, because now there's this huge pandemic of Christians saying I'm a born again Christian, right? Because they take that as a spiritual rebirth whenever you get baptized or whenever you are believing in Jesus. Now all of a sudden you are born again, right? So the thing is that you can take it as that, which has no evidence, that's a new concept. It's a doctrine that was invented. We can't find any evidence in the scriptures about that. However, we now have found much evidence of reincarnation. So now when Jesus is speaking, that's saying, unless you are born again, you cannot enter the kingdom of heaven. And let's read the whole passage if you want.
Sure, yeah, sure.
So it's John 3, verses 1 through 8.
Yes, sure. So Jesus answered and said to him, and he's speaking to Nicodemus, Jesus answered and said to him, most assuredly, I say to you, unless one is born again, he cannot see the kingdom of God. Nicodemus said to him, how can a man be born when he is old? Can he enter a second time into his mother's womb and be born? Jesus answered, most assuredly, I say to you, unless one is born of water and the Spirit, he cannot enter the kingdom of God. That which is born of the flesh is flesh, and that which is born of the Spirit is spirit. Do not marvel that I said to you, you must be born again.
Wow, that's a lot to unpack, to be honest. So everything that we just mentioned can be summarized in this verse. So it's talking about how the vessel is the vessel, and then the Spirit is the Spirit. So the soul, but the thing is that the vessel has to be pure in order for the righteous soul to come, right? So now every single time that you're reincarnating, you are doing good deeds and you are keeping yourself from sin, your body will get purer and purer until you can be a vessel for a pure and righteous soul. It's obvious. This is a teaching that Abba Sadiq, he has dug out for us from the scriptures. It's an obvious concept that it can be summarized in this thing, and the rabbi, okay, the epitome of like religion of that time, he was so confused what he was talking about.
Yes, he was. And I think the next verse is also relevant. I'm just going to also read it. He continues and he says, the wind blows wherever it pleases. You hear its sound, but you cannot tell where it comes from or where it is going. So it is with everyone born of the Spirit. So it's so interesting. He's making a comparison between the Spirit or this word, which I'm not sure the pronunciation, but it's pneuma in Greek. And it has also a comparison with wind. So the soul, it's compared to wind, and it comes upon people and they cannot see it. And it goes where it pleases. So I think that this is just a very interesting...
It's talking about the soul. It's talking about the spirit. Exactly. It's talking about something unseen that's entering the body, and it comes and goes as it pleases, but the body is still there. The body still exists and it's still born. So it's so obvious that every concept that Abba Sadiq regarding this, and he has made videos about this. He talked about this in great detail in his videos, right? About the concept of every single person, they have a vessel. So there are evil souls and there are good souls. So the good souls only enter pure bodies.
Exactly. Yeah.
So he's saying that you guys, you have to be born again and do good and do better and be born again until you can have a spirit upon you, so that you can enter the kingdom of heaven.
Yes, exactly.
And he's obviously talking about the kingdom of heaven that is in the future.
Yes.
So he's saying, because right now it's not going to be established, but it is going to be established someday.
Right. So this
is the return.
Exactly.
Yes.
So we find that the kingdom of God that Jesus was talking about is also the doctrine of our faith. We preach the same gospel of the kingdom of God, or God's kingdom on earth, and the rulership of God. And as we know, this is something that will be fulfilled and enabled by the return of the souls, right?
Exactly.
The souls have reincarnated in order to enter into that kingdom. So it's sort of a very, very interesting and very relevant passage to our day and age, because we are living in the time of the fulfillment, where people have been born again. They have been born again, of the Spirit. The soul has reincarnated in a new flesh, and these souls have entered into the kingdom, and they will enter into the kingdom.
Exactly. So it's quite cool. And the kingdom is also prophesied, right? They kept talking about the kingdom of heaven, the divine just state, right? That was going to be established in the future, right? Because it's the hereafter, in the afterlife. So you have to earn by good deeds. You have to keep going. You have to, keep suffering through oppression while it's the state of Satan, right? While Satan is ruling the world, you have to forbear it. You have to endure until the end, so that, because the more good deeds that you have, the more likely you are to incarnate in the end times, when the kingdom of heaven will come to the earth and Christ and his saints will rule in it. That's the entire, so now it's being fulfilled.
Exactly.
Now is the time of that fulfillment.
It's worth mentioning, I think, to our Christian viewers, anybody who's not very familiar with Islam or Islamic belief, particularly with Shia Islam, there are so many narrations in the Shia books about this exact concept, which is the return of the prophets and the messengers in the end times, and this event which is known as the Raja, or the return. And it mentions the return of specific prophets and the messengers who incarnated before. And I think that it's a really interesting topic, and anybody who's been captivated by the things that we were talking about today, I really encourage you to check out these narrations, and also to read Al-Haft al-Sharif. It's up on the screen. Al-Haft al-Sharif, you can download it for free on our website, and that is a book that speaks about Reincarnation, and it is a book full of narrations of Imam Jafar Sadiq, the sixth Imam. And yeah, it's an amazing book, and it just shows that this belief is something that spans across all religions. And Abu Saliki also released a video today about how it seems like we take from a lot of different religions, and somebody was asking whether we are making a religion soup or something along these lines. And actually Abu Saliki clarified that actually we believe that all these religions are one in the same, because they're all coming from the same pure source, which is God. So we find that there is common ground between the different faiths, and this belief in reincarnation is one that the Abrahamic faiths do share, and also the Eastern religions share. And we find that Abu Saliki has made sense of all of these different prophecies.
Exactly. So thank you very much for joining us today, and I hope that you benefited from this discussion, and I hope that you will investigate, and peace be upon you all. God bless you.